Greetings, greetings. A lot going on these days, so we're streaming this live. Huddle in closely. Let us speak of tales, myth, meaning, and humanity's journey into eclipses, and Jupiter's journey into Pisces. Now we know Mercury, Hermes, Thoth, to be the planet of magicians, working knowledge and understanding of the surrounding world and universe. Mercury does this by breaking apart and compartmentalizing the information received from the surrounding environment into comprehensible phenomenon. Therefore, experience itself is only possible due to the divine function of mind. The magician understands all of life is part of the divine mind, the dream of God. Understanding the nature of mind, it becomes known that how we approach anything, how we see something, what vantage point we have towards a particular anything matters. Because if you look at the same thing from a different angle, you get an entirely different perspective, story, and facet. For example, astrology. We could talk about these days and weeks to near infinite detail. So we have to break apart, chunk, and prioritize what's going on these weeks and days. Mercury's moved into his own sign of Gemini May 3rd, Venus into Gemini on the 8th. Now, this is a time of busyness, lots of exchange. Mercury is the telephone operator god. So we're in a social phase, we're forming new connections, new networks, and opportunities for exchange. Mercury, Venus in Gemini. Now, this is going to be taking place in a pretty fast-paced, one thing to the next, juggling type of rhythm. Now, Mars is simultaneously transiting the sign of Cancer from the end of April through the second week of June. This presents a little bit more of a simultaneous need to slow down, or at least take care of, nourish and nurture our body, our energy levels. Even our own sexuality and libido requires self-care and safe space, supportive environment, so to be able to delicately explore. Okay, so there's one example, one comparison or dichotomy. We see Mercury and Venus in the sign of Gemini, the mind, again, interaction, busy, active, learning, while Mars in Cancer is also needing the space to retreat, rest, and rejuvenate our own personal energy. Now, it's another possible comparison or dichotomy using the astrology as an example. Well, we see the inner planets are currently transiting the inner signs. That is, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars are approaching new moon tomorrow, are in the personal signs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and squaring the outer planets, Jupiter and Saturn, in the more outer, societal, humanitarian-oriented sign of Aquarius. So this particular comparison or contrast reveals a natural creative tension between personal exchanges, that needs to be addressed, while simultaneously the needs and the pressures coming from a very bumpy, exciting, and quickly changing world, culture, and societal orientation. Okay? So again, there's now this tension between personal, our interests, our lives, our values, and this quickly changing world. How does this fit together? This is another comparison, contrast, dichotomy. For example, we saw Venus square to Jupiter this last week. That tends to bring a little bit more money, a little bit more spending. Sun square to Jupiter. This is a pretty fast-paced time in terms of talking, communication, connections, networking. Again, there's a lot going on. But the dichotomy here is between the personal, interpersonal. what's going on in the world with these exciting, revolutionary, experimental changes, and how are we bringing that into our own personal space, our livelihood, how we're earning our money, how we're relating our energy, our personal way and pace of doing things. So that's the dichotomy in this new moon in Taurus. Everything to do with personal space, property, resources, the need to slow down and honor our natural biological rhythms is Taurus. While we see Saturn and Jupiter, new networks, new connections, new culture, humanitarianism, the world quickly changing, technology, what needs to be addressed out there. And that's where there's this opportunity to experiment. How can we bring these two together? Okay. Now, we're working with poles here. This is the magic of Gemini. There are diverse areas and needs, and this is where an experiment is required and can take place to find these new biological rhythms or livelihood or how to honor our body, our energy system in a way that works in our quickly changing society. So there's a creative opportunity to experiment. How we're doing creative exchanges, relating to people, relating to money, resources. How does this work? So here we see Venus now in Gemini ruling Taurus. I mean, this is not a stereotypical, forthcoming Taurus season, the way we may see following a new moon in Taurus. I think that's hinted by the fact that the moon and Venus were only in the sign of Taurus together for a few hours this year. So it's more extroverted, busy, a lot to do, and that's where Mercury, the telephone operator god, is really ruling this phase now through summertime where there's this learning how to connect, how to barter. Gemini's like trading, but we're experimenting with these telephone operator. What happens if we look at things from this angle? Whereas if we connect things this way, how does everything change? And when we're connecting with this person, rather when we're connecting with this person, we see things from a different angle. We get a different reflection. How does that make everything change? That is where there's this polar magic, this kind of juggling, shifting, experimentation that can be very, very progressive, very, very liberating. Again, we're finding new ways to form these exchanges, these connections, how we're trading, how we're earning money, beginning on this new moon tomorrow. It's a really great time to sow a seed intention for forming this type of space that honors our needs and allows for this type of give and take, this exchange that's not really bending us out of whack. And that's, of course, 2021 is this year of knocking over the old conditioned patterns that we receive from our fathers, our bosses, and the old patriarch, going way, way back, many generations. And these are the beaten tracks and treads that are no longer true. They no longer help us. They're not useful in our functioning. Things could be much better, much more progressive, much more liberated. And this year is the perfect year for this type of experimentation. Now, I gave some examples of compare and contrast. This is some of the magic we use in any type of astrology reading. This riding back and forth between extremes or polar opposites, looking at things from multiple angles, as well as asking innocent questions. Hey, what if we take things this way? What if we look things from this angle? This is Gemini, the function of the mind, and we are all really needing to understand and use this faculty and function of consciousness. This is going to be for all of us where so many evolutionary lessons are coming through this next year, but especially now through summertime and especially these forthcoming eclipse seasons. We see Mercury conjunct the moon's north node today. Mercury will station retrograde at the end of Gemini, at the end of May. Mercury is in his own sign through the next several months, the north node's in Gemini through the rest of the year. So the reality of Gemini is that we are all multifaceted beings, multi-personality, composite beings. And we Gemini mutate depending on context. Now this is a little bit of foreshadowing, but approaching eclipse season, we're going to be getting to these in our next coming future videos. The truth is context changes. There is no one-size-fits-all truth. In real life, you have to discern and label what are the diverse parts of ourself and our surrounding world, so to understand the ingredients that we are working with. We have to understand the ingredients that we are working with before we can create any recipe. Yes, common sense. Well, this is where there's going to be actually a huge amount of learning going on this summertime. What's the truth? What have we assumed or believed versus what we're actually working with? And now is the time to be experimenting and playing with what we're working with. The materials at hand. What are those materials? What are those ingredients? We need to change our orientation necessarily in order to have a healthy life. We have to seek the feedback of other people. We need multiple perspectives. We need to look at the same thing from a multifaceted approach to understand what that thing is. This is where Gemini is the sign of curiosity and learning and asking questions. It's about this eternal student that just wants to play with this thing and move it around and look at it from every angle, because that's how we really discover some of these gifts, these gems, as well as these capabilities that we all have as human beings: pioneering capabilities, innovative capabilities, creative and experimental capabilities. That's largely what we can be discovering and kicking off through this willingness to explore, to discover, to learn. You see, something you'll hear me address is I'm going to, especially in the next video, address common misconceptions. The idea of no mind equals no capability to discern or orient. No mind is one of these common New Age spiritual ideas that can be spiritual suicide or a patriarchal poison pill. Don't think or no mind is another way to not challenge authority, to not know and understand the world around us and therefore be disabled. All right? So, no judgment equals no discernment. Judging is not bad. It's not the sign of someone who's too mean or too harsh. Judgment is the sign of someone who actually wants to live a healthy life. They're discerning what's around them. Not everything is everything. Not everything is a blob. We need to judge, to form structures, to create boundaries, to define, partition, and chunk what is and what is not the world that we're working with, and how does that world work, and how does it function. So to have compartmentalization, to have any functioning, is to have a functioning relationship to life and the surrounding environment, period. So I'm not going to be exactly focusing on any Eckhart Tolle bullshit these next few months. I am really going to be addressing this massive blind spot in the New Age movement, spiritual, religious environments with passion and vigor now through summertime. But for now, and simply as an introduction to this forthcoming spiritual, philosophical, existential, soul-searching chapter, do not put down the faculty of the mind or the need to actually understand how things work instead of assume. Mercury, the lower mind, is not inferior. This is a massive prejudice against our consciousness, our being, our capability to live in the world in healthy ways. The lower mind is not inferior. It is a taproot of consciousness. The chunking, discerning, analyzing, compartmentalization or analysis is not an enemy of truth. It is the means to truly test and understand what life is through and through. So to actually understand the truth. This is something that I oftentimes come up against commonly in being an astrologer and being a Gemini astrologer. Astrology does not limit or pigeonhole who you are. It allows you to understand and embrace who you are by seeing yourself through and through. That means every facet, every angle is observable through the lens of astrology. Every raw ingredient we're made of can be known and defined. So why are people afraid of the definition and the seemingly pigeonholing or limitation that comes out of astrology, and therefore understanding ourselves, what we're made of, what we're working with? Well, through knowing what we're made of and working with, we gain an actual knowledge and understanding of life, and that's what scares people. It's not being limited to something that's actually harmful or restrictive. It's that many would rather be unknown and undefined as a blah because that seems restrictive and that may seem more liberating. But in fact, that's a way of being lost or useless or disempowered if we don't know what we are or what the world is or what the world is made of. There are definitions. There is phenomenon that does function in particular ways, and we get to participate in that reality, in those laws of the universe. But this isn't getting served to us on a silver platter right now. We don't know everything. We're on a journey of honoring the mind, honoring the search for truth. That way we can continue to experiment, grow, learn, and develop. So get ready. Mercury stations at the end of this month. Mercury's in his own sign of Gemini through July 11th. In 1 month from now, we'll have a solar eclipse in Gemini, which means the moon's north node is transiting Gemini this year, where Mercury is transiting exactly today. Venus joins next Monday, the 17th. See, I've had to open this can of worms with Gemini, the mind trick stuff, right? But there will be more layers, twists, and turns to come. Oh yes, we are not in Kansas anymore, my friends. More to come, and next time we're particularly going to zoom in on the potential pitfalls of religious fundamentalism, escapism, delusionment, crusadism, denial. All that really good old Pisces age stuff is on the menu, and you know how I love to dig into all that. So stick around. Just never accept the whole "you can't know" bullshit or "nobody knows" bullshit. This is a way of copping out of life. Please, just shoot yourself in the foot. You might as well. No, we're working on a grand learning adventure, just initiating. We're all teachers and students right now. And let's be sure, you can know things. You can know how the understand works, you can learn and gain knowledge, and in fact, this is the means to getting to truth. Mercury, the discerning faculty, that's what leads us to understanding the universe and truth. And if we're saying we can't know, that's a way of avoiding living a life grounded in reality. Now, intentions for tomorrow's new moon in Taurus. Period of shifting livelihood, money, property space, relationship, resources. It's an experiment. This new moon is conjunct Uranus. It's conjunct the asteroid Prometheus. Big dimensional shift happening this year. It's such a big dimensional shift occurring this year. It can be just damn weird. We can be, confused, spaced out, uncertain. What's going to happen? I don't know. What's happening? Nothing that I've ever known before. What needs to change? Something needs to change. That's the energy of this year. Big dimensional shift. This does require getting out of our own way. This does require letting go. We see this new moon in a beautiful sextile to Neptune. Asteroid Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom, is joining Neptune in a conjunction all of this month. This is a very spiritual, mystical, sensitive. We can let ourselves receive. In fact, in certain ways, we're all learning to let ourselves receive. The money, the resources, the support. There is more support and more abundance than we've been led to believe in the past. And that's where this experiment, this surrendering, this letting go with that sextile to Neptune, this can bring in many more magical, profound, good things than we may have led to believe was possible in the past. This is like opening new channels. We're opening up to new possibilities, new people, new places, providing new resources, etc. We can really, really, really be like an artist. in front of a blank canvas right now. Let that beauty flow and express itself. And we can really let this beauty flow into our own personal space with this new moon beginning in Taurus. We can create some amazing, progressive, creative, humanitarian spaces beginning this next lunar cycle. This is like temple space. Now, this Thursday, Jupiter moves into Pisces, where Jupiter will remain through the end of this year, December. This is going to bring forth a very existential, magical, imaginative time. There's a bleed through happening here. There's synchronicities happening here. There's weirdness and magic, as well as a tremendous uncertainty, because it's not just Jupiter transiting Pisces, where he's exalted. Jupiter is about to station pretty much all summertime in Pisces, also square to the moon's nodes. So absolutely, this can also be a little bit confusing, uncertain. What is true? This is certainly indicating a search for truth. More on that next time. Now, folks, this week, be easy on yourself, especially your body, and honor your energy, your instincts, your biological rhythms. This week we see Mars square to Chiron in quincunx to Saturn. There can be triggers, reactivity, as well as lethargy, burnout. There's so much excitement, start, stop, push, pull. This can really take an effect on our body, especially this week. Be very flexible, very forgiving. Don't force any square pegs through a round hole. That could really cause some setbacks, even to your own physical health. So we need to be flexible. We all got to sometimes take an extra day off of work, even if we feel guilty or inadequate about it, because it's not like our bosses and these old traditional structures know anything about self-care. Mars is in Cancer. We really have to apply effort consciously to bring in the most needed and missing medicine in this day and age, which is safe and supportive space to self-reflect, to be in tune with our own emotional, physical, mental well-being. That's where the magic's really happening. There's so much taking place out there, so much excitement, so much change. It's like a whirlpool. That this is the opportunity to go back and forth. It's like a call and response between the world and our inner physical, personal well-being, so we can kind of refine and adjust from both ends. And that's where we're creating this new space, a new livelihood, new work, new job, new exchanges, new community. There's a gorgeous opportunity here through this divine type of experimentation. So please take care of yourself. Be flexible. Don't force it. Experiment. Remember, Mercury is the phone operator god. It's like connecting different dimensions, looking from different facets. That's where there's a lot of discovery, eureka moments, and groundbreaking recognition. Speaking of which, members of my exclusive community, Astro School, Q&A Circle, Patreon, all get access to a private Discord chat room. As a little bit of a fun, creative, Jupiter now going into Pisces, I'm going to roll out some kind of fun, colorful, creative updates to this private chat room. I did my first community gathering at the beginning of this month. We're going to have our next community meeting, June 5th. Amazing group of people, artists, innovators, astrologers, healers. I mean, what a beautiful, diverse group full of diverse interests, diverse passions, and that's what this community is all about. So again, this community is free for all. Feel free to connect and share with like minds. It's a big opportunity for show and tell, and it's going to continue and evolve and flow with time. That's the beautiful part of doing, my job, is I just set this thing up, and now it's an organic, growing, living, breathing organism. So what a joy it is to connect and share in these new, progressive, experimental type of ways. So I hope to see you there. My next live Q&A is going to be May 29th, I want to say. Last Sunday of the month will be the next Q&A. I am moving location between now and then. That's going to be a part of my own eclipse season. Eclipses are on the horizon. Eclipses are always dimensional tunnels where we're going from one dimension to another. It's an evolutionary period where things really change around. It's kind of common to move during eclipse season, so it's going to be an exciting time on the menu, on the horizon, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with all of you. So I'm going to close my Gemini trap. As always, take care. Wishing you all the best.